Evan covered his wife Andy's eyes and led her to the edge of a cliff. When she opened her eyes, she was mesmerized by the view. Andy knew this was a surprise her husband had prepared for her. She happily said that her Father in heaven would also bless them. But unexpectedly, Evan said, "You'll be reunited with him very soon." Andy was instantly stunned. Evan sneered and said he was about to send her to see her father. She didn't understand why Evan was treating her like this. She quickly said that she was pregnant. At that moment, her best friend Morgana slowly walked over. Andy immediately cried out to her for help. To her shock, Morgana held her belly and said, "Evan's child is right here." It was only then that Andy realized Morgana and Evan were in this together. The next second, Morgana splashed acid onto Andy's face, and Evan pushed her off the cliff. Soon, the incident made headlines, and it just so happened that Andy's twin sister, Annie, saw it. She didn't believe that Andy would die so easily, so she went to Andy's home in the middle of the night, and was shocked to discover Evan had long been entangled with Morgana, and the two were planning to seize Andy's hundreds of billions in assets. At this moment, Annie finally realized Andy's death was anything but simple. She secretly vowed to uncover the truth and avenge Andy's death. The next day, Evan gathered the company's shareholders to hold a funeral for Andy, and publicly announced that he would be taking over the company as the new chairman. Everyone began whispering among themselves upon hearing this, because Evan was merely a live-in son-in-law, yet he dared to seize the Shun family's fortune. But a major shareholder stated that as Andy's husband, he did have inheritance rights. At that moment, the housekeeper questioned Evan's intentions, saying that Andy had just passed away, and he was already so eager to fight over the inheritance. Evan argued that the Shun Group was now in chaos, and only by quickly stabilizing the company could he properly honor Andy's memory. Everyone felt that Evan was loyal and righteous, so they all agreed to let him become chairman. Just as Evan thought he had succeeded, a voice suddenly echoed around the room. "I object." Right after, Annie walked in holding an umbrella. Upon seeing Annie's face clearly, everyone instinctively stepped back in fear. But Annie calmly walked right up to Evan and addressed him as husband. Evan was afraid deep down, but he quickly regained his composure, because he was sure his wife was completely dead, and the woman before him couldn't possibly be her. However, Morgana wasn't so composed. Annie gave her just one look, and she collapsed to the ground in fear, legs giving out. Her reaction made Annie even more certain that Andy's death was definitely connected to them. To erase Evan's doubts, Annie voluntarily mentioned things that only he and Andy would know. The shareholders immediately believed she was Andy, but Evan still didn't believe her. He asked Annie, "If that's true, do you remember jumping off the cliff 7 days ago?" Annie, of course, didn't believe her sister had taken her own life, so she lied, saying she woke up at the bottom of the cliff and didn't remember what had happened. She then cautiously asked Evan, "Could someone have pushed me?" Morgana jumped in shock. Evan also began to panic internally, afraid of implicating himself, so he temporarily acknowledged her identity and pretended to be considerate, saying he would return the company to her. Seeing this, Annie didn't refuse, and directly announced that tomorrow she would hold a shareholders meeting as the chairman, and hoped all shareholders would attend on time. After speaking, she turned and walked away without looking back. Little did she know, Evan had already set a trap for her. Soon, Annie returned to Andy's villa, but just as she reached the entrance, a large black dog rushed out from inside. It was a vicious dog with a fierce temperament, and would only obey Andy. Annie instantly became alert, but as soon as the dog reached Annie, it obediently sat down. Evan immediately showed a look of disbelief. Even so, he was not convinced, so while hugging Annie's shoulder, he secretly pulled out a strand of her hair and gave it to Morgana for a DNA test. He even boasted that at the shareholders' meeting, he would expose Annie's true identity once and for all. Little did he know this move would end up destroying him. The next day, the shareholders' meeting was held as scheduled. Annie had just taken her seat when someone immediately questioned her identity. Morgana looked smug and confident. It turned out those people were all on her side. She claimed to have evidence that Annie was an imposter, and urged everyone to kick her out together. Annie calmly responded, "Do you have actual proof that I'm a fake?" Evan immediately had a locked briefcase brought in, saying it contained the company's core secrets, and only Andy knew the password. "If she can open it," he said, "then she's the real Andy." Annie instantly grew nervous, but in such a critical moment, she had no choice but to push through. But she got the password wrong on her first attempt. Morgana mocked her, saying, "Just admit you're fake already." Annie explained that Morgana was too noisy, and it distracted her, so Evan gave her another chance. But Annie still got it wrong the second time. Morgana arrogantly said, "This safe only gives you 3 tries. If all 3 are wrong, it will permanently lock. Now you've only got 1 shot left." Annie, however, calmed down instead. She said, "If that's the case, why don't we all make a little bet? If I get it wrong the 3rd time, I'll admit I'm a fake and leave the company for good. But if I open it, then I want all your shares." At first, no one wanted to gamble with her, but Morgana insisted she had proof Annie was a fraud. So everyone believed her and signed the agreement. Then Annie looked at Evan and said, "Everyone else has signed. Now it's your turn." Since there were so many people present, Evan couldn't refuse, so he had no choice but to sign his name too. Only then did Annie approach the safe and enter the password for the 3rd time. The next second, something unbelievable happened.